Hello, good evening, everyone. Hope I'm coming through okay. So, first and foremost, on behalf of QServe, thank you for joining the session, guys. So, this is second session, and very happy to see this commitment to your professional growth. And welcome all the candidates to second session of this learning program, where we're going to touch base variations and all the innards of variations. So last session we have explained or we have comprehensively explained about the portion sum items, like what is portion sum items, type of portion sum items, and many examples to understand what exactly does it means. Similarly, today we're going to explain about the variations. It's a very common topic and it's one of the very critical part of project control and management. So we are going to see like how a variation pop up, how you can control it, what is a variation, how contractor initiate the variation, how client initiate the variation, and many clauses that giving you an idea about the variations. Okay, so hope you know about QServe already. So I'm not going much about QServe and things. Okay, let me see the first. Let me show you the first slide of the presentation. Okay, so variations. So understanding variation is crucial for professional in the construction industry because this defines the final cost. You start a contract first. You start a contract first for a lump sum amount or a remeasure basis, whatever. But for a client, there is an amount in his mind. But in the post contract, this is the most critical item that significantly impact the client budget. So it is very important that you should understand the concept of variation, how it managed, how it administrated, and finally how you control the variation also. This all together called change management procedure. Change management procedures. A variation, that's a change actually. That's change from what? Let's see what is variation in a general view. So next slide you can see a variation in a general view. Now, I'm sure you all have experience in FIDIC and different forms of contract, and you're pretty sure about, or you're pretty knows about a definition of variation from different forms of contract, be it FIDIC, be it NEC, be it JCT, or be it a bespoke form of contract. But now let us see from high, from ceiling. Let's see what is a variation in a very layman perspective. So in a layman perspective, say, just imagine if you're not a QS, you're not a QS at all right now. So what is variation for a project manager? What is variation for a site engineer? What is variation for a electrical engineer? Or what is variation for a what else? Planning engineer. Planning engineer might know more, but if you look into delivery team, they might not be knowing much about the technicality of variations or contractual aspect of variations. For him or for a layman, it's a deviation from the contract. So there is a contract. Before we start the work, we have to form a contract. Then only the work will start. So what you do when a client and contractor enter into a contract to start the work. So contract define what? So contract define the scope of the work you're going to perform, your obligations, your rights, your scope. Everything is being stated in the contract. In a contract, you can see specification, you can see drawings, you can see BOQ, you can see TQs, you can see PTCs, you can see site investigation reports. Everything will be there. So when a contract consists of all these documents, anything deviating from that is a variation. So a deviation from a contract, for example, change in specification, change in scope, change in level, all that are a variation. Okay, so any change varying from what stated in the contract. I'm repeating, any change varying from what is stated in the contract, be it expressly stated, be it impliedly stated, or whatever stated by reference. So you might be confused. What is this express, implied, or reference term? So, guys, if you look at the contract, if you open the contract, whatever you can physically see, whatever physically written, that is called expressly stated. Your drawings, your specifications, your BOQ, you can see physically, you can touch those documents. That is expressed terms in a contract. Something called implied terms, law. Something imposed in the contract by law is called implied terms. Now something called reference. If you open the specification, you can see contracted to follow all authority requirement. That is a requirement by reference. So that means whichever country you are from, if in specification it states that contracted to follow authority requirement means he has to make sure his proposal should comply with all the authority requirement of the country. So that's why I mentioned all, be it expressly stated, be it implied manner, or by reference. If a new requirement changing from all these three, that is a variation. But however, a lump sum contract, a mere change in quantity is not a variation. So as per BOQ, you have to install 100 meters of pipeline. In drawing, it show 100 meter of pipeline only. But when you installing, it become 120 meters. That is not a variation because drawing is not being changed. Specification is not being changed. As per site condition, you are to install more. If site condition introduce is not a new introduced change, as a contractor, you have to coordinate with the site requirement and ensure the work is installed as per the requirement. Again, one example, same example. The BOQ says 10 meters, drawings say 15 meters. At site, you install 20 meters. Lump sum contract, okay? So you may think now I install 20 meters, whereas in drawing 50 meters only. But if the drawing is not changing, the quantity being increased because of a site requirement or site coordination requirement, it's not a variation. Okay. Or a quality change or additional requirement due to a existing specification or authority requirement, it's not a change. If I take a firefighting example, okay, so in Dubai and or in UAE in common, the contractor has to ensure the civil defense requirement. So in the drawing, there is 10 sprinklers, one room, okay, in a one room. In drawing, there is 10 sprinklers. In BOQ, 10 sprinklers. But as per authority requirement, you have to install 15 sprinklers. That's not a variations because in specification, they should have already mentioned that the contractor to fulfill all the authority requirement. So this mere change in quantity because of a specification or authority requirement will not constitute a change. So I hope you guys are clear with the concept of variation in a general view. So now it's time to look into our Bible. Our Bible is always, at least in UAE and GCC, it's FIDIC. Okay, let us see what FIDIC says about the variation. Why I'm focusing on FIDIC? Read MRICS because our sessions are more focused on MRICS because I want you to understand what is the concept of items, where the reference is, what is the FIDIC clause for that, so that in an interview, be it a job interview or be it a RICS interview, you will be able to explain the answer with full confidence and you will crack the interview. That's my intent. So now I explained about the variation. Now it's time to decode the FIDIC part of it because once you know the FIDIC definition of variation, it's the final point. It's the full stop of your learning for variation. Let's see what FIDIC says. So I put a snippet from FIDIC. In both 17 and 99, the same definition is there. Okay. So what FIDIC says? So FIDIC says each variation may include first, change to the quantities of any item of work included in the contract. However, such changes do not necessarily constitute a variation. So first point, they mentioned a variation may include changes to the quantity. That means there could be an addition. Second, changes to the quality and other characteristic of any item of work. So first, change in quantity. Second, changing to the quality. Third item, changes to the level, position, or and dimensions of any part of the work. The first is changes, quantity changes, quality changes, then level or position or dimension. Okay. And fourth item is the omission of any work. Omission of any work unless it is to be carried out by others without the agreement of parties. So omission of an items. And fifth item is any additional work, plant, material or services necessary for the permanent work, including any associated test and completion, borehole, and other testing and explanatory work. Last item, changes to the sequence of timing of the execution of the work. So guys, this fifth five item define a variation, or this five item constitute a variation. If any change is not falling under any of these five items, it's not a variation. You are be a contractor, you be a client, or you be a consultant. This is the first point for you to check. If you're a consultant, if a contractor submit a variation request, you have to check against these 5 points. Is this variation is a change in quantity? Yes or no? Second question, is there is a quality change? Yes or no? Is there is a change in level or position or dimension? Fourth question, is there any omission of the work? Fourth question, is there any additional plant or material or service requirement? Fifth question, is there is a change in sequence or timing of execution? So when you put, if you're a consultant, you receive a RFC or a notification of variation from the contractor, you have to open the variation. You have to open an Excel, type this five item, put yes or no. So you open the variation. You see there is a change in quantity. You put tick mark X. You put a tick mark yes. That means it's a variation. If no, the first condition, quantity variation is not fulfilled. Second, is there a change in quality? Check. If that is not fulfilled, go for next. Is there a change in level? Tick mark. If there is a omission, tick mark. If there is an addition of plant or material, tick mark. If there is sequence change, so be it a contractor or be it a consultant, as a contractor, before you send any variation request, make sure any of this condition is fulfilled. Not every condition, okay? Not every condition. Any of this condition has to be fulfilled. If your variation or a change or your anticipated change fall under any of these five items, that is a variation. Because as a contractor, you can tell, dear consultant or client, there is a change in quality. So we are entitled for variations. As a client or a consultant, you can say, no, dear contractor, it's not fall under any of the item listed in the clause number 13.1, 1 to 5 or 1 to 6. So it's not a variation. So you can confidently tell them. There's no room for doubt. There is no doubt at all. You can say straight away. It's not a variations. Okay. So this 6 points define variations. Let's look into some examples so that you can understand in detail. Okay. So change in quantity is a straightforward items which you might have already come across 100 times. Okay. So that is a contract. There's a MEP item, say FCU. Okay. So there's a FCU and a client added one more room or one more floor where you has to increase the quantity of the FCU. Straightforward variation. Or there is a more requirement for the tiles, or client increase the landscape area, or client add a what do you call that, a fountain, or client add a swimming pool, or client add a extra FHU. All these additional are variations. So I emphasize client added everything. Okay, so that's a variations. Second, change in quality and other characteristic is purely change specifications. Okay, so as per specification, you have to purchase it normal marbles from China or something. But client is insisting, he sent an RFI response and telling the marble should be procured from the Europe, or they want you to procure marble from the or they want you to procure Italian marble from the Greece or any of the European country, whereas contract tender drawing says you can procure from China. So what is changed? A quality. What you praised in tender stage, they mentioned in specification you can procure from the China. But here now they changing the country of origin. That means the quality is being changed. Okay. So for other example, there was a pipe, chill water pipeline to be installed. It was carbon steel pipe. Then the client is telling, no, I need stainless steel pipe. Okay. Similarly, paint nature they're changing. Instead of this paint, I have to go for sustainable paint. Instead of concrete, let me go to green concrete. So basically, what they're changing, the quality or the characteristics are being changed. This is your common example when they change specification and all. Now let's look into change to the level, position, and dimension of the work. So how it constitute a variation? That means when you change the level or change the position, how it qualify as a variations. Let us explain example so you will understand like what is mean by change in level. Okay. So for a road project, okay, you are constructing a road. So road finish level was at like 15 datum, 15 mm. Okay. But engineer instructing you to rise it by 15.50 because they are anticipating some flood. Imagine there is a big rain in last year in Dubai. Okay. So now everybody worried about the flood risk. Okay. So initial design, it was 15 plus 15 was the road level. Now they are increasing to 15.5. That means additional fill material, additional compaction, possible retaining structures, everything you need to include. So that is the one example for the uh, changing level. Okay. And if you take a building example, originally your ground floor is 0, 0. Okay. Now you decide to increase plus 0.50 for same example, drainage requirement, because the flood is there. It was 0, 0 initially. You decide to add plus 50 for drainage requirement. Again, here also there will be extra backfilling, steps to be provided, and access ramp to be provided. So this is a addition requirement or additional work for you. Okay. Or example, there is a building project in which you need to increase the depth, like instead of -3, you are adding -0.5 or something to accommodate one more parking slot or a basement parking. So what? It's again the level is changed or portions be changed. Because of that, you need to have a more excavation, more dewatering. Everything will be coming. Okay. So that's one example for the change in position or levels. Now, the omission of any work. Because if you want to descope an item and give to somebody else, or you going to perform by yourself. So that's a mention, unless it is to be carried out by others without an agreement of parties. So you don't want that work to be carried out. So that is called omission of work. Maybe you have a 15th floor building, you decide to omit one floor completely. That is omission. but should not be carried out by you or by others. I will explain that part in upcoming slides. Don't worry. Okay, so that's a common omission is a very common thing in variations. Let us see an additional work, fifth item, additional work, plan material. Like, it's a common thing, just like it's in quantity. Here, you are adding additional work. Maybe you adding extra room, you adding extra FCUs, you adding extra FHU, you adding extra generators, you adding extra studies, you adding extra stress analysis. That is additional work, plan, material, or services. Fifth item, straightforward. Okay. Now the sixth item, changes to the sequence or timing of the execution of work. How come this change sequence of timing of the work will constitute a variations? So when a contractor submit a RFP or a tender document, they will put, we assumed in the RFP, you can see if you're a contractor, if you're someone from estimation department, you will make sure you will put a caveat over here. Our proposal is based on the working hours 8 to 5 or 7 to 5 or 7 to 6, full stop. Okay, because you planned your workforce for the day shift only. But the client is telling, no, I want you to work night shift also. That means timing is changed here. He's telling, I don't want you to work in daytime, let's work only in night time. So, night shift also being added. Whereas when you submit the tender document, you anticipate only day shift. But now he is telling add night shift also. That means you have to find new safety inspectors, you have to find safety engineers, you have to find site engineers, you have to find foreman for the night shift also, which is you are not considered in your tender submission, because you consider only for the day shift. The engineer will come and go. But when you are in night shift, your resources increasing, your engineers increasing, your site staff increasing, which is not covered in the RFP. So what you do, when you receive such an instruction from the client, you should say, dear client, as per clause 13.1, section 6, it's mentioned, change in timing or sequence constitute a variation. We need additional cost for that. Okay, we will take one example for the change sequence also. Okay, just imagine there's two buildings, block A and block B. Okay, so when initially the client told you, you will start the block A first, you complete up to the substructure, then you go to block B. Okay, but when you about to start the work, client is telling, no, I need to start all together, block A and block B together. So you plan everything based on the block A first, you do up to substructure so that you can then move the material. Sorry, you can move because initially what you do is a foundation and initial ground improvement work. So what you planned was for the block A, you will do the ground improvement, you will do all the foundation, then that equipment you will move to block B. Now he's telling, no, I need block A and block B start simultaneously. That means literally means you need to add extra resource and equipment for that. So what you should do, again you have to send a notification for the client, client, as per the baseline or our proposal, the sequence was we plan block A, we complete block A, then go to block B. But now you're telling to go together block A, block B, which we literally need extra resources and equipment, which is constitute more cost for us. You are to pay for it. This is an example for change in sequence or timing of the work. Okay. So just keep in mind the last sentence. The contractor shall not make any alteration or modification of the permanent work unless and until engineer instruct a variation under the subclause 13.31. So guys, be very, very careful as a contractor. Unless engineer instruct a variation, don't do it. Even client instruct. But again, as per your contract, if client can instruct, you can carry the work. Okay. So this is the definition of variation as per the FIDIC. Now let us see when a variation can be instructed, like how to instruct, when we can instruct, because we have to be aware about that also, because now variation is the definition also. Now let us see when it can be instructed. So again, clause number 13.1. Okay, which state when you can instruct variations. Okay, so it states variation may be initiated by the engineer under subclause 13.3 at any time before the issue of the taking over certificate for the work. It's very clear, guys. Before TOC, the client can instruct variation. That means the variation can be instructed up to TOC only. So you might have a question, what will we do after TOC? So TOC or taking over certificate issued means what? As a client, you are taking over the work or you are receiving the work formally from the contractor. So when you he handed over the work to the I'm sorry, as a contractor, when he handed over the work to the client formally, that is the full stop of variations. Because when TOC is issued, that means taking over certificate is issued. Okay, that is clause number 10 actually. We will be having session on that completely in a later stage. So when TOC is issued, that means the project formally handed over to the client. No more variation, because ideally after that contractor can demob his resources. He will demob his resources completely. Okay, what does it mean? When he demobilize his resources, his labors, his plant, his equipment, his temporary facility, his site office, everything he will demob. Okay, after TOC, say after 2 months after TOC, you are issuing a variation and you expect them to do on a BOQ rate. That's not possible. That is the main intent. Maybe after 2 months also, you can instruct variation, but the rate will not be applicable, BOQ rate. Why? Because he already demobilized his resources. So now if you want to do the work, he has to mobilize everything again. Maybe a crane, maybe an equipment, maybe resources, everything he has to mobilize. So his BOQ rate might not be applicable. And in the ideal and the best case, up to TOC, you can issue variations. Okay? First thing. And second question, can a contractor can reject the request? So not before TOC. Okay? Before TOC, the consultant or client is requesting a variation. Do you think if he requested a variation as a contractor, can you say no to him or not? Because in many what do you say that in many documents you can see contract is obeyed to follow the rules or the instruction of the engineer and everything. So what do you think when engineers say a contractor to do a variation, can he can object it or not, or he can say no? Yes, there is some condition where he can say no to the variations. Just imagine the consultant is issuing an EI to do a variation. So you are telling no to him. So guys, only three conditions. Only upon these three conditions you can say no to him. The first condition, the varied work was unforeseeable, having regard to the scope and nature of the work described in the specification. First condition. Okay. Second, the contractor cannot readily obtain the goods required for the variation. Third condition, it will adversely affect the contractor's ability to comply with the subclause 4.8, that is health safety obligation, and subclause 4.18, protection to the environment. So you as a client or you are, be it a contractor or client, okay, let's put in a first stage where you are a contractor. Okay, client is instructing you to, okay, instructing you to add a structural element on top of the building. It was a residential building. Okay, the project was a residential building, a subsidized residential building for not very luxury or a premium buildings. Okay, So client was telling, I need to add a structural element on the top of it. As a contractor, do you ever anticipate such a sculpture or such a structure to be installed in top of that building? So maybe your structural design you should change. Maybe your BMU you should change. Many elements, maybe foundation you should change because you never anticipated such a big structural element will be coming on top of it. Uh, if it's a luxury building or a prestige building, I may say, hey, client may be telling to add some more items to look it good. Maybe he may be adding extra pergola or extra, what do you call, extra facades or extra XYZ. But for a normal subsidized building, as a contractor, you will never anticipate to add such a premium sculpture or a structural element on top of the building. So you can say, no, I never anticipate such a requirement on the top of the building or any part of the building. You can say straight away. Another example, he is significantly increasing the capacity of FCU or chillers. Because if it's a six, say, just imagine a G plus 6 building. In a G plus 6 building, in the residential building, you know, as a contractor, what should be the requirement of a chill water piping and things. Suddenly he's increasing like this much. Your entire design concept will be changed. Because you as a MEP contractor, you might have designed already ducting chill water piping. When you introduce a big change, unforeseeable change, you have to change everything. You should tell him like it's completely unforeseeable for me to to expect such changes which I cannot fulfill the requirement. Second, the contractor cannot readily obtain the goods required for the variation. So he is asking you to install a big chandelier. There is a podium. In podium, he wants you to install a big chandelier. Whereas the contract is about to complete. Time of completion is say only 3 months balance. But he is sending a request telling that you have to install a chandelier also. So, a special chandelier is a long lead item actually. You may need 6 months to manufacture it, and you may need 1 month to deliver also. So you should say, guys, dear client consultant, it's a long lead items. It's not readily available right now, and I need to search the market and get quotes, get a material submitted, get it approved. Then only he will start manufacturing. And again, I need it minimum need 4 months. I need 1 more month to deliver also. Whereas my time of completion is only 3 months. So I cannot get it on time, or it's readily not available. So in this case also, you can send a no, or you can say no to the variations. A fourth course. If a change introduced by the consultant or a client will adversely affect the contractor's ability to comply with the subclause 4.8. That means health and safety obligations. Okay. So he is telling to, let me go back to a first example where he want to install a highly high-end or a well-defined architectural structure on top of a building. You as a contractor, maybe you are a bigger contractor, you don't have such experience. You don't know how to install that. You don't have that much cranes, or you don't have that much team to install. You don't know what are the HSA requirement for that, high training, height obligations, PP for that, many things. You can say, dear client, we don't have expertise on that. And I'm sure if I install this, we would not be able to follow health and safety requirement. So we appreciate, we can all understand that we would not be able to complete this work. Similarly, if if during the excavation, if contractor finds some asbestos and client is telling you to clear it immediately, but asbestos you cannot clear immediately, and as a contractor you cannot do at all. For that you need to get a new specialized people. They have to come at site and they have to remove it. There is a specialized methodologies are there. They will put a big mask and specialized equipment to remove it, everything. Then you should tell them, our team is not experienced enough or expertise enough to handle such requirement, or we cannot follow health and safety obligation for that. So we cannot do it, and it's a no from our side. Similarly, if we are telling to prepare a chemical plant or something, or a small chemical laboratory maybe, you should say no. What you're telling is not comply with the environment requirement. I cannot do it. Or he's telling you to remove the mangroves without a permit. You should tell him, guys, I cannot remove it this because it's against the protection of the environment. These are some example for the scenario where you should say no to the variations as a contractor. Okay. Now let us look into procedures for variation, like how a variation will be initiated. Okay. So if you look into variation, there's mainly two type. Let me go to next slide, please. 1 second, it's not moving. Yeah. So the procedures for variations. So variations mainly, I would say two types. One, the client driven variations, where client introducing changes. The second one, the changes identified by the contractor. This is the main thing which you can come across. The main two changes. One is basically the change introduced by the client, and other is the change identified by the contractor. These are the main changes where you would see in any project. Okay. So in clause number 13.3, they explained about the variation procedures. In the previously, whatever I explained is from the clause 13.1. Okay. 13.1. Now we are going to 13.3, which is variation procedures. This clause explain actually how the variation works, like how you introduce a variations, be it a client, be it a contractor, how you will be doing. I'm taking a small pause. Before I'm going, I want to ask you if you have any doubts till now, so that I can clear it and move forward. I'm going to enable your mic and all. Let's see if you have any doubt. You can ask now. Until now, because we are moving to the procedures. Before that, are you clear with the concept of variation, guys? Can I have some thumbs up or something? Okay, thank you. I could see some thumbs up. So I may assume like you guys understood the concept of variation. Like, when I say concept, exactly like, if you are a consultant or a contractor, you should be able to identify it, and you should be able to reject or accept it. That's the basics. Like when I say, how do you understand the variations? Okay. Let us move to the procedures of variations. Like how first is like how a client initiate variations. Okay. So that means clause number 13.3. Keep your mind. Clause number 13.3 speak about the procedure of variations. Okay. So variation shall be initiated by the engineer in accordance with either in the following procedure. The first condition, variation by EI, variation by instruction. So engineer may instruct a variation by giving a notice describing the required changes and stating any requirement of the recording of cost to the contractor in accordance with the subclause 3.5. So that means the first case, okay? This first case is that, yeah, somebody has a question, yeah. Who this?
Hi, Mithun. This is Meera.
Hi, Mira.
Mithun, I'm sorry to stop you in between. It's
No problem.
regarding the contractors not accepting a variation. You said three conditions.
Yeah,
In that, the first condition says varied works was unforeseeable having regard to the scope and nature of works described in specification.
yeah.
So that is why the engineer or the client accepts it as a, like instruct it as a variation, correct? So
Yeah.
then why the contractor, on what grounds can he not accept it?
So he entered into the contract
Mm,
to a work which he
mm,
can complete.
okay.
When he don't have his capacity to do that, he can say no because he don't want to fail for that. If you look into first stage, you would say it's a good thing for you, it's a validation for you, you will get a more
Mm.
money out of it.
Okay.
But when someone is not competent enough to do that, he can say no to that.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Okay. For
Maybe like a building contractor is asked to do some.
a land, yeah, infra
Okay.
work,
Okay. Okay.
okay, or landscape
In
work,
such
he would
grounds.
say
So,
no. Such
okay. So
grounds he can
that,
say.
okay. So that he has to explain the reason. Correct?
Exactly. He would say, see, my expertise for last 10 years is
Okay.
purely building work. And if
Mm-hmm.
you, and my certificate is G+5 something, and I
Mm.
don't have capacity for this. And I never anticipate such work will be coming in my way.
But then still he is a main contractor, so he
Yeah,
can do this work by appointing a subcontractor under him, right?
he can appoint a subcontractor under him, but what if the complication he going to face? He don't want to take the risk
Mm.
because he will be appointing a say infra contractor.
Mm.
Sometimes he will be powerful than him. He won't listen. He
Okay.
know the complications. As a
Okay.
experienced guy, he will know the complications of that. So he would
Mm.
say the main problem is if he say yes, that his responsibility, 100%
Mm.
his responsibility. Okay, which
Okay.
so he's taking responsibility for something he doesn't know, or he doesn't have expertise.
Mm. Okay.
Sometimes he will not be able to get approval also.
Mm.
That's the
Okay.
point.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Okay,
Thank
clear?
you. Thank you.
Okay. Any other doubts, guys? So I'm just proceeding. Okay, so first way, as a client or a consultant, you can issue a variation by sending a notice or an insertion. That is our famous EI, engineers insertion. Okay, so if a client want to introduce a new change, say just imagine this is the villa project. A client want to add MSC wall. So what you would say, dear contractor, here what under this EI refer to sub clause 3.5, we are requesting you to proceed with the MSC wall work, and you may please submit the cost proposal for the same. That is the way first stage or a first method where you will tell him to, you will directly tell him to go for the work and you will tell him to submit the cost proposal for that, cost proposal for that. Okay, so the contractor shall proceed with the, if he can do the work, if this work is not falling under any of the scenario were explained previously, which he can object, so he shall proceed with the execution of the variation and shall within 28 days or any other period proposed by contractor and agreed by the engineer of receiving the instruction, submit to the engineer detailed particulars. So first case is like when client want to introduce a new change, the consultant will be issuing a EI, an instruction to proceed with the work, and if he would say, please submit the cost proposal within 28 days. Sometimes there will be very complicated work. So the contractor would say, dear consultant, I will not be able to submit in 28 days. I need some time, like I need 60 days. You may, as a client or consultant, you may agree or you may not agree. But if it's reasonable, you will agree and say, okay, it's okay. You can take time up to 60 days and submit the cost proposal. So this is the first case where consultant issue an instruction. That means engineers instruction and instruct the contractor to start the work and submit the cost proposal parallel. The first case. Okay. Let us look into second case. Like this is clause number 13.3.1. Let us look into clause number 13.3.2, which is variation by request for proposal. I think some technical glitch. My slide is not moving. Yeah, now it's moved. Okay. So clause number 13.3.2. The first is clause number 13.3.1 that talk about the EI. Second is the variation by request for proposal. So engineer may request a proposal before instructing a variation. by giving a notice to the contractor. In the first case, he is issuing an EI and telling him to submit the cost proposal. Whereas in second case, he asking for a proposal before the insertion. Okay. In first case, the client or consultant sure about the change. He decided to install a swimming pool or he decided to construct a MSC board. So what he do? He sent instruction and he told him to submit the cost proposal. Second case, he is not sending the instruction. Let us take the same example. Okay. Client want to install or construct a MSC board. Okay. But he don't want to send a direct EI. His mind was, you will take a proposal from the contractor and see how much is costing. If that is okay within the budget, we can go for it. If not, no for that. So in that case, in the first case, client is sure about the changes. He want to go for it. In second cases, his client is not very sure for the changes, or he may think there is a change to be introduced, but let us see how much going to cost. If it's significantly high, he can say no. In that case, what he do is basically requesting for a proposal before instructing a variation. So the contractor will submit the cost proposal, and if say client is okay with the proposal, then he will send an EI. Okay. So once you receive the proposal, instruction, the contractor shall respond to this notice as soon as practicable by either submitting a proposal, like with all details, he will submit a proposal, or else he would say no because of the reasons like whichever explained in 30.1. Okay. So there's two ways the client will insert a variation. One is EI and proposal. Second is you ask for proposal and one proposal submitted. If it's within the budget, if client okay, then you issue the EI. Okay. Now let us see how contractor would identify a variations. Okay. So client side is okay or consultant side is okay. Now as a contractor, how do you identify a variation? So as a contractor, you will identify variation from different cases. Like sometimes the consultant will comment on shop drawings. They would say add extra supports, add extra this thing, add extra cushions, add extra expansion joint, like that. That is above your scope. First condition. Second, sometimes when you issue an RFI responses, they would comment and send back to you. Okay, they would tell you to put extra grooves for the marble, change the groove shape maybe, or they would say to add water hammer arrestor, or they would tell you to add extra thing in RFI response. That is, of course, when you identify if that is a new requirement, that's a variation. In method statement, you will propose a method statement. Client would add extra something, which is over and above requirement. That's one case. Then in material submitted also. So based on specification, you submit the material submitted. Then client is telling, no, the country of origin should be UK, country of origin should be US. Then that's the change from the contract. Okay. Sometimes in site work also, client will say to change that, change this in a verbal manner. Again, in a verbal instruction, like, he would give you some verbal instruction also. All these cases are the post where you can identify a variation. Just imagine, first cases, in shop drawing, consultant commented and he commented to add some expansion joint. So what you do first thing, you will open the contract and see, as per the contract, there's a requirement of the expansion joint or not. You will check. The contract said, yes, there's a requirement, then it's not a variation. But as per the contract, it's not required. What you should do, you issue a notice of variation by which you reserving your right for the claim. You would say, dear client, as per the common shop drawing, we identify a variation which fall under the clause 13.1, change in quantity or whatever, it's a variation. And you would mention there is a cost and time impact. The particular shall be submitted in a due course in a separate cover. That's called issue for so notice for variation, or sometimes something called RFC, request for change also. Different terminology. You will be sending a notice first. So once you send a notice, engineer will approve it or reject it. If it's approved, you are to submit the cost proposal. So guys, if you are a contractor, I would really appreciate, if you review all this document from transmittal to everything and identify variations. You may review all the RFI responses. Trust me, guys, you can identify hundreds of course additions. If you're a client, same way. If you're a consultant, if you review all the shop drawing comments, RFI responses, method statement comments, you can identify hundreds of cost savings. That is something you adding value to your client. As a contractor, you will get more cost, additional cost. You can submit more cost proposals like this, because not every RFI response will come to you, because only significant, then only the engineering team will send to you. Dear QS, I think there's a change, but there will be many minor comments also, which many people ignore it. Okay, so this is how the contractor will identify the variation and send you. Okay, then I will explain you how you submit the variation. I don't want to explain that because you all are having significant experience in this industry. So, but again, let us see what are the submission particulars. Okay. So, of course, when you submit the document, there is three items. This A, B, C item should be in your mind. First, a description of the work or to be performed, including details of the resources and method adopted or to be adopted by the contractor. So when you open Excel, what your first page is like, this explain the scope of the work. This is what I got to perform. This is the requirement of resources. Then you identify the program changes. You would say, this is the program, because literally by tailing this, introducing this item, you are reserving your right for the claims, be it EOT, be it whatever, you are reserving your right for that. Okay, then of course your measurement things as per the contract, you open the drawings, you identify the quantity, then you price it maybe as per BOQ rate, maybe new rate, star rate, but each and every cases, please ensure you provide all the substantiations. Quantity, there should be quantity backup for the drawing. You have taken the quantity from the drawings and there should be backup for that. And for the rates, if it's not BOQ rate, you need to provide a star rate. And when you have star rate, make sure there is a substantiation in terms of quotation or LPO or whatever. Then the last case, if the work is omitted, you are a contractor and the client is omitting the work, guys, please keep in your mind, you can claim loss of profit and other losses and damages suffered. That means you are enter into a contract to do the full scope of work, and your company's turnover, profit, everything based on this only. Okay. Suddenly, client is telling, I decided to omit this big scope of work. When he omit a big scope of work, say there's two towers. Suddenly he's telling, let us go for only one tower. But you mobilize your resource to do the full scope of work, and you maybe just imagine it's a 100 million project. In 100 million project, 20 million for your profit. So that is accountable to your, or accounting to your turnover also. Suddenly he is telling, no, it's let us not proceed with the work, let this go it. So you can claim your loss of profit and any other losses or damages that could occur. Keep in mind, this is as per FIDIC, okay? Maybe your contract will be different. If you are using a FIDIC, it is applicable. If you are using a bespoke, this clause is not applicable at all. Okay. Sometimes, many cases, the client, they will, in particular condition, they will delete this scope, delete this command or this scope also. Okay. So guys, that's all about the variations. I hope we explained about the variation in detail, like a very, very scrutinized way we explained, like the concept of variation, the condition of variations, the methodology of variations, in terms of client and contractor, and like how you submit the variation also. So thank you very much, and I really appreciate your patience. I really appreciate your dedication. And any questions you can ask me now, and open to the work. Maybe I would enable your mic. I can answer the questions for you. Okay, you can see the screen is about our QSER. Like we mainly focused on the MRICS training, but same time we decided to create this group to share knowledge to everyone, because MRICS it's like a journey towards charter status. Not everybody is joining us in that. It's a paid course for sure. So just to share our knowledge in a broader perspective, we start this initiate this group and this sessions as well. Thank you guys. I am open to your questions. Thank you. If no questions, you are free to drop off also. Good night. But I'll be staying here maybe 5 minutes more, 10 minutes more. Let us see. Can you please explain point C again? Which is a point C of what? Okay, point C is about when the contract is not capable of handling or he don't have the competencies to cover the HSC requirement. Okay, the contractor, sorry, client is introducing a new requirement, because of the new requirement is like, say, just an example. Okay, he's someone constructing small buildings. Okay, and he start construction, and suddenly client is telling you to do a deep excavation. You don't you can do deep excavation, but you're not aware about the QHSC requirement for that, like confined space requirement, O2 coverage requirement. You're not sure about that, you're not aware of that, or you don't have any knowledge about that, so you can deny that one. You can say, I'm not familiar to work in a confined space, I'm not familiar HSC requirement on such scope, so I will not be able to do this work for you. Similarly, okay, similarly, environmental requirement. I hope I explain about the asbestos and requirement. So if contractors, sorry, client is telling you to remove the asbestos from the site, which is identified while excavation, you as a contractor will not be have the competency for that, because for that scope, there should be specialist should come and he should do. But if client is telling to go for that, you should say, no, we don't have certification, or we don't have permit, or we don't have authority to do that. We are not aware about the QHSC requirement for that, and it's something impacting environment which we cannot handle like that. Similar example, if you are, for example, if you doing construction in European region, like Northeast European region, where still you can see the impact of Second World War. We had a project in a region, I cannot disclose the name. So we start excavation and we start finding out mines. A lot of mines are there, or unexploded bombs. If you say to the contractor, dear contractor, please clear it, he would say, or if you're a contractor, you should say, we don't have, it's going to impact the QHS requirement. We are not interested to risk the life of our people, or we are not committed enough to diffuse those mines, so we cannot do this work. Suffer asked me, I hope is clear, Happy Sharma, what I explained, the scenarios. So, Safar, please explain change in quantity doesn't constitute a variation always. Why? Because I think I explained that in the first instant. Okay. So maybe you need to reroute sometimes, or you need to say some. Just imagine a piping installation or an MEP installation. When you install the MEP, because of the space constraint, you may need to do some rerouting. You may need to do some add some extra fittings or something. Where you adding the quantity, but it's not a variation. You are because drawing is not changing, specification is not changing. It's purely site coordination only. But again, your quantity will be increasing because of the coordination. That is called there's a change in quantity, but it's not constitute a variation. I explain one more example about the sprinklers. Okay, so there is an authority requirement. You need to have some 10 sprinklers in the room, whereas as per drawing, it's only 8 sprinklers. So you have to increase 2 more sprinklers. That is not a variation because already authority requirement are mentioned in the specification. So in this case, there's increase in quantity, but still it's not a variation. Suffer, is that clear for you? Suffer, can I have a yes or no, please, if it's clear for you? I hope it's clear, guys. If you have any doubt, you can put in the chat box also. And I would like to tell you something on 6th of the June. That is means Tuesday. There is an icebreaker we're going to conduct. It's about how to become an MRICS. We're going to explain about the MRICS, the different pathways, different criteria, and like we're going to roadmap the full process from submission CPDs to the MRICS. I would really appreciate if you could join sessions on Tuesday, 8 o'clock, just for your awareness. So, guys, if no further question, yes, Happy Sharma. Yes, please go ahead, Happy Sharma. I assume no more questions. So, good night, guys. I hope the session was useful for you. And thank you very much for participating. We will be arranging a session in upcoming week, most probably, if not a week after that. Thank you.